News Center 2, the 10 o'clock update with Sam Jones, Nancy Herr, Bob Demers, and Jerry Weber.
Good evening, everyone. At the top of our late update, the line forms here.
Sam began his career in the 1970s, working in radio and television in Arkansas as a reporter and weekend anchor for KTHV-TV, the CBS affiliate in Little Rock. In 1976, he was promoted to the Monday through Friday prime anchor spot. 6 months later, he was offered the additional duties of assistant news director. Not long after this promotion in 1979, news came of the American embassy takeover in Iran. Several hundred armed Iranian students occupied the U.S. Embassy in central Tehran, taking all Americans hostage. Among those held captive were 3 military personnel and 1 political prisoner from Arkansas. After 444 days of U.S. negotiations, Sam traveled to what was then West Germany to the hostages' release. That opened opportunities with CBS News as a stringer. While in West Germany, he filed stories for both his station back in Little Rock and for CBS News. He went to Washington, D.C. to cover the official welcome home ceremonies at the White House. In 1981, Sam moved to Tulsa. He was hired by Scripps Howard to be the main anchor for KJRH-TV Channel 2. It wasn't long before his goals were evident: to tell stories about the treasures of Oklahoma, the people and their day-to-day accomplishments. Sam quickly became known as a man not only who anchored the news, but was a skilled reporter. He knew how to ask tough questions and find answers. Sam has spent his life working to tell the stories of others and advocate for those who may not have had a voice. His career has put him in a room with everyone from civil rights activist Rosa Parks to former President Bill Clinton. During his time in Little Rock and in Tulsa, Sam established himself as a journalist who knew the value of a good story and the importance of giving others a voice. Many still talk about a documentary it took a year for him to write and produce in 1983 called Spirit of the Fire. Working virtually every weekend in the Cookson Hills of northeast Oklahoma, Sam was allowed to take cameras into the Cotuí Band of Cherokee Society and document their way of life and ceremonies. He took viewers on a journey and gave them a glimpse of things never seen before by the outside world. The historic piece of work is now housed in the Smithsonian Museum and is still used today as a marker for the right way to share the story of a people and their journey. A second documentary, The Little Giant from Little Dixie, was on the life and times of former Speaker of the House Carl Albert. At one time, he was just a heartbeat away from the presidency during Watergate and the resignation of Vice President Spiro Agnew. That video is also in the Smithsonian collection. Sam used his Traveling Two Country series to introduce viewers to people like Charles Banks Wilson, an Oklahoma artist whose works hang in the Smithsonian, Washington's Library of Congress, and the Oklahoma State Capitol. During his career, Sam worked for KTFO and KOTV in Tulsa, but it was always his way of telling stories of the disadvantaged and sometimes forgotten people of northeast Oklahoma, from young elementary school kids competing in the Special Olympics to a young man scratching out a life on the streets and living in a dumpster. In 2006, Sam began hosting a weekly public affairs show, Green Country Perspectives, on RSU-TV. He continues to mentor college students who are looking to break into the TV industry. During this time at RSU-TV, Sam received 2 Emmys for programs called Not in My Family on domestic abuse and a half-hour special on country music legend Janet Jaye. His integrity and the ability to look into the souls of the people in the stories he tells has always shone through his work. This also tells what kind of person he is: honest, a listener, and proud, with his eyes always open to what and who is around him and the stories they have to share. Please welcome Sam Jones as he's inducted in the 2022 National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Heartland Chapter's Gold Circle.
You know, when I started in television well over 50 years ago, every newsroom had at least 2 of these. This is an old Bell and Howell 16-millimeter camera. It was the Jeep of the industry for many, many years. No battery. You had to wind it to make it work, and it still works. Listen, you can hear it. I think you can hear that. Shot film at roughly 24 frames a second. and it was the Jeep of the industry. It could take all kinds of abuse. The other one was the one that we call the Mickey Mouse camera. And you can tell by looking at the magazines that held the film the reason it was called that. I want to thank the folks at the Heartland Emmys for this award. You know, I can't tell you what it means for someone like myself to receive that acknowledgement of being in the industry over 50 years. And I have to tell you, I hope in some small way I've made a difference. Again, my heartfelt thanks to the Heartland chapter of the Emmys.